frowned upon by politicians, pulled off of store shelves, and completely disassociated with the public. Is this game the most controversial game ever released? Come along and let's find out.
Released in 2006, Rule of Rose is one of the PlayStation 2's most controversial, rare and misunderstood games. It's a psychological horror title set aboard an airship ruled by a group of children calling themselves the Red Crayon Aristocrats. But beneath that surreal presentation lies a deeply symbolic story about trauma, childhood cruelty and memory. The player assumes the role of Jennifer, a 19-year-old woman drawn into a world that seems childish and fantastical, yet disturbingly hostile. The children she encounters enforce strict hierarchies, punishments and rituals that make the airship feel less like a place of imagination and more like a distorted reflection of her past. At release, Rule of Rose was met with heavy backlash, much of it based on misinformation. European newspapers accused the game of displaying extreme child abuse and controversial themes that were either exaggerated or simply untrue. This backlash caused the game to be pulled from the store shelves and printed in extremely limited numbers. That is the main reason the game is now considered one of the most expensive PlayStation 2 titles ever produced. But rarity alone isn't why Rule of Rose built such a devoted cult following. What draws people in is its haunting narrative structure. The environments, characters, and even the monsters aren't literal. They are symbolic reconstructions of Jennifer's childhood memories. What looks like a surreal nightmare is actually a psychological portrait of a child trying to survive neglect, bullying, and loss. In just a few hours of gameplay, Rule of Rose shifts from being a strange horror story about children to a disturbing examination of how trauma shapes memory and how the past can trap someone long after they escape it. This is the world of Rule of Rose, a game that failed commercially, was misunderstood publicly, but remains one of the most thematically ambitious pieces of storytelling ever released on the PlayStation 2. Rule of Rose released during the final years of the PlayStation 2 era. It was developed by Punchline, a small Japanese studio known for experimental, psychological storytelling. Atlas handled the North American release, while 505 Games published the European version. From the beginning, the game was built to be unconventional. Punchline wanted to explore childhood trauma, memory, and psychological fear without relying on typical horror elements. But what they created was so unusual that it quickly became a target for misunderstanding. Months before the game even hit store shelves in Europe, several newspapers ran sensationalized stories accusing Rule of Rose of containing disturbing and inappropriate content involving children. These reports were based on misinterpretations, early screenshots, and in many cases, complete misinformation. Politicians and media figures condemned the game without ever playing it. Some retailers refused to stock it. Others removed it from shelves immediately after release. The result was devastating for its commercial success. Extremely limited distribution, very low sales, a damaged reputation before players ever saw the truth. Ironically, most of the claims made against Rule of Rose were false. The game was dark, symbolic, and disturbing, but not in the ways the media described. Instead of exposing real horror, the controversy created an artificial one, overshadowing the game's actual message. This limited release would become one of the biggest reasons Rule of Rose is now one of the most expensive PS2 games ever produced. Please forgive me, I'm still violently ill. Rule of Rose opens with a quiet, almost storybook-like atmosphere. You play as Jennifer, a 19-year-old woman who is lured by a mysterious young girl into an isolated, abandoned area. What starts as a simple search quickly becomes much stranger. Fuck! Jennifer is captured and taken aboard a massive airship, but this isn't an ordinary airship. It's controlled entirely by children. These children belong to a group called the Red Crayon Aristocrats, a self-appointed hierarchy that imposes strict rules, monthly offerings, and harsh punishments on anyone they consider low-ranking. From the moment Jennifer arrives, she is treated as an outsider. The children speak in riddles, hold secret meetings, and enforce their own bizarre laws. Their world feels exaggerated, dreamlike, and often unsettling, as if everything is filtered through imagination rather than reality. The deeper you progress, the more it becomes clear that the airship isn't meant to be taken literally. It functions as a symbolic landscape, a distorted reconstruction of Jennifer's past. The game slowly reveals that these children, their rituals, and even the environments they inhabit are connected to Jennifer's childhood at the Rose Garden Orphanage, a place she once lived. The airship acts as a twisted echo of these memories, where small childhood conflicts become terrifying threats and ordinary events become surreal nightmares. Throughout this section of the story, the player is intentionally left uncertain about what is real and what is imagined. The airship sequences represent Jennifer's internal fears and trauma, while brief flashes of grounded environments hint at the true orphanage beneath the surface. This dual structure, shifting between surreal fantasy and harsh reality, is what defines the narrative of Rule of Rose. It invites the player into Jennifer's fragmented memory, letting us experience her past the way she remembers it, distorted, emotional, and often painful.
Rule of Rose's gameplay is, well, it exists. But beneath the famously awkward combat and stiff controls lies a surprisingly deliberate design. Rule of Rose doesn't want you to feel strong. Jennifer is not a fighter. She's a terrified teenager, trapped in a world run by violent children and abusive rules. The game forces you into that vulnerability. The combat is slow and sloppy, enemies swarm you, weapons break or barely work, and running is almost always the correct answer. This isn't a mistake. It's the point. The adults who should protect Jennifer are gone, and the children who remain treat survival like a game. Brown, the best boy in PS2 horror history. The real gameplay innovation is Brown, the dog who becomes Jennifer's partner. He can track sense of items you need, find hidden objects, lead you through confusing areas, even distract enemies. Brown isn't just a companion. He's the emotional center of the game. In a story built on cruelty, he's the only character who never betrays Jennifer. Exploration and offering structure. Most chapters follow a consistent loop. You arrive at a new chapter location. The Aristocrat Club demands a monthly offering. You search for clues. Brown tracks the items. You present the object completing the ritual. This repetition mirrors the structure of abuse. The same cycle, over and over and over again, with the victim expected to perform. The boss fights in Rule of Rose aren't about skill or mastery, they're about feeling completely powerless. And I know that because I didn't even make it past the first one. Jennifer isn't a fighter. She's slow, untrained, and constantly overwhelmed. And the combat systems make sure you feel that. Attacks are delayed, movement is stiff, healing is limited, and enemies don't telegraph anything clearly. The game never lets you feel in control. The first boss fight makes this clear immediately. It's awkward, punishing, and exhausting. Not because it's challenging in a fair way, but because the mechanics actively work against you. You don't win by playing well, you win by surviving long enough for the game to allow it. That frustration is deliberate. The game wants the player to feel as helpless as Jennifer does. You're not meant to dominate the encounter, you're meant to endure it. In that sense, failing repeatedly isn't a skill issue, it's the experience. The problem is that the design choice filters players hard. Many never get past the opening hours, not because they don't understand the game, but because the game refuses to meet them halfway. Rule of Rose succeeds at conveying vulnerability. It does so at the cost of accessibility and my sanity. Also, to top it all off, this boss was a creepy fucker. How are you today? You good?
I am good. I am good. Thank you. What about you?
I'm amazing, brother. Very good. I'm just going to run through these questions. Take as long as you want to answer them and give as much detail as you feel like, because I want to get the insight, a better understanding of the game.
Sure.
So, when did you first play Rule of Rose and what was your initial reaction?
Okay, maybe you'd like to know how I discovered Rule of Rose. It was because of the controversy around it, false rumors about it having, child pornography in it, which were wrong, of course. And this is how I discovered the game, and it piqued my interest. Then I went to the game forums and discovered the actual story and fell in love with it. But the game by that time was already hard to find and a little pricey. Eventually, I stumbled on it, Occasion Game Store. I got the PS2 and the game at the same time, and so that's when it all happened when I was in high school.
How many years ago did you purchase the game and how much was it?
Let me think. Maybe it was like 15 years ago, and the game I had it for like 30 euros at that time.
Wow. Okay. Here in Ireland, it's the cheapest one I found is nearly 250 euros.
I think it was even cheaper maybe, and I found a second copy that I didn't buy that was 30 euros. But it was a very good price. The sellers They were not aware of the game's price.
Moving on to so when I'm playing the game at the moment, which is why I wanted to do interviews halfway through, is just to get a better understanding of the game. I seem to get very frustrated at boss fights, especially in the game, and I'm struggling.
Yeah,
I was
that's
just
fun, of course.
yeah, I just wanted to ask: did the difficulty enhance the game's themes for you, or does it hold back on the experience, make it more difficult?
Okay, so no, it does not enhance the game's themes for me because that's just it's just difficult because it is poorly made, poorly coded. As someone who knows how development is done, using the theme of the story to justify poor coding is just not an excuse. But the developers themselves, they know that their combat system is not very good, and they wish they had made it better, but they couldn't.
See, this is why I feel like an interview was very important, because my recollection of the game so far was that the difficulty of the game was just enhancing how vulnerable Jennifer is, and it's trying to make you feel how Jennifer would feel in these scenarios. But you're saying it's just bad code and bad game development.
I mean, bad game developer. I don't want to be mean to the developers. It's hard to make the game. They have their own set of problems. But for example, the Hoffman boss fight, when you are behind the boss's back and he gives a strike in front, you still get hit
Yeah.
because the hitbox is poorly made. That's just how it is. And as a mod on the subreddit, I already saw a post of someone who was absolutely raging on that fight and who said the game sucked, and because this very specific thing happened to him. The post was deleted right afterwards, but yeah, that's absolutely a frustration factor. Yeah, if you want to make a character vulnerable and all, you can do it, but you have to make a system that works and that is not that is actually fair.
You need to find that fine balance between the two.
Yes, I guess you will find people who will find who will think who will tell you this system actually helped them. That they're entitled to that. I don't think that's a good argument.
That's fair enough. See, that changes my opinion on how I approach the rest of the game, which is helpful. What do you think Rule of Rose is really about beneath the surface? Based on the public's view of the game at the time, obviously there was a lot of controversy surrounding the game. If you were to explain to someone who was following that controversy what the game actually means, or what you think it actually means, to make
Well,
sense of why the game's themes are like that.
if I were to tell to someone who discovered the game because of the controversy, of course I would tell them first and foremost that the accusations are absolutely wrong. As for what the game is about, there is a YouTuber called Ragnar Rocks who made a deep analysis of the game, 1 hour video, and I agree pretty much with everything that he said, maybe 95% of what he said. Globally, it says that Rule of Rose is a tale of abuse. It talks about abusive relationships and when someone reaches a breaking point. Yes, a tale of abuse, first and foremost.
Just moving on to the controversy around the game. That's what dragged me in as well. How do you feel about the controversy surrounding the game? And do you think there could be a deeper understanding for the rest of the public in order to get a remake in the modern age?
Well, what I felt about the controversy, when I understood what the game was actually about, of course, I was very angry, very upset. Lots of people still are, honestly. I'd like not to rage baiting about that. I think there are much more productive things to do. I mentioned quickly it was a tale of abuse, and it's like being abused, abusing your authorities. How would an understanding of a game go for the public? I think if first off we would dissipate the false accusations of the game having been a fetish game, that would already be great. I think it is well known, however, that at this point, at least I hope so, that the accusations were wrong anyway.
In my breakdown of the controversy, I felt like it was very misunderstood, extremely misunderstood.
Yeah, I mean, there are also just accusations that were like blatant lies, like you have to bury a girl. Well, no, actually, you get buried, or that you have to rape or torture a little girl. But this is just not true. Yeah, the guy who wrote the article, the Italian article, yeah, a terrible journalist, should not even be called that. I think that's yeah, you should communicate about that first, and then you can also say, yeah, Rule of Rose has a beautiful story, it has beautiful music, it deserves a remake for those reasons. It was ahead of its time in many things.
Why do you think Rule of Rose developed such a strong cult following?
Well, I think in its themes and its tale of abuse and in its themes about bullying, it resonated with a lot of people over the years. It's also one of the first games to have gay relationships. Then again, it was ahead of its time, and I think this reasoning, the fact it resonated with so many people, makes the game so important to them in the first place.
It's a very good place to rest a worry, if you like, especially in the earlier days when this game released. Coming out as gay or lesbian wasn't as easy as it is today. It's not easy today, but it's definitely more difficult in previous years. And same with bullying. I feel like it was a lot harder to open up about and speak to someone about back in those times. I feel like this might have been a resting place for some people who shared the same problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another factor could be that the game story can be nebulous at times, and which has led to countless discussions on forums about how to interpret certain things. It's fascinating to read, really, but then it gives the game an extra layer of aura that you cannot necessarily get with a more modern game.
What does Rule of Rose mean to you personally?
People who experience bullying in life will find the game resonating with them. I discovered it with controversy, and I found it. I fell in love with the story. I guess I would have fallen in love with a Silent Hill game if I had discovered Silent Hill first, but it is Rule of Rose, so here it is. Yeah, fell in love with the universe, the characters, and everything.
Just a almost instant strong attraction to the story and the characters.
Yeah, yeah. Plus the fact the game is hard to find makes it even more fascinating. Now I have a couple copies of it, and I and I paint stuff about that, and I make 3D renders of it. So yeah,
I seen those on your Reddit. They're amazing.
I also have a 3D printed statue of Jennifer that I need to get to paint at some point. I have a Japanese doujinshi of the game. Doujinshi being, not the hentai stuff. It's like fan fiction, but in independent comics. And I had it translated, and the translation is findable on the subreddit as well. The first statue of Jennifer ever made was an order of mine.
And just one last question before I go is, if you had to describe Rule of Rose in one sentence, what would it be?
In one sentence, well, the wiki has a very good quote for that. A story too good, too beautiful to go untold.
Unbelievable. I really appreciate this, and thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome. If you have any more questions, I'm available.
That's perfect. Thanks very much. Just a quick update after that interview. I learned that the combat and control system isn't great due to poor coding and other factors. I heavily gave the game the benefit of the doubt by translating its poor controls to how Jennifer feels. Turns out I was wrong. But when playing with that in mind, it made the game a lot more enjoyable for me. It almost accidentally works in some ways, and in my opinion it really enhances the connection the player has with Jennifer. So instead of getting frustrated at the poor control and combat system, just translate it to how Jennifer feels. She should feel weak and vulnerable, and she should feel like she's being overshadowed. I'd really recommend playing the game with this mindset, but that's just a thought. I could be very wrong, I'm new to this. Visually, Rule of Rose is very much a PlayStation 2 game. The textures are rough, the lighting is uneven, and the character models move like they're already tired of being there. But that strangely works in the game's favour. The orphanage feels neglected and uncomfortable. Not because it's full of threats, but because it feels unloved. Tight hallways and cramped rooms create constant unease without relying on jump scares. The airship takes that discomfort and makes it worse. Its layout is awkward, repetitive, and deliberately confusing. Exploring it feels less like navigating a real place and more like wandering through a half-remembered dream that refuses to make sense. The map doesn't help much either. It shows where you've been, not where you're going, which mostly serves to confirm that yes, you are lost, and no, the game isn't interested in helping you. That design mirrors Jennifer's experience perfectly. She's powerless and confused, and the world treats the player the same way. Sometimes that's effective. Other times you're looping the same hallway again and again, wondering whether this is deep symbolism or just a door you missed. When it works brilliantly. The world doesn't just frame the story, it is the story. Rule of Rose doesn't want you to feel welcome. It wants you to feel small, unsure, and slightly foolish for expecting directions. I struggled with the map layout, amongst other things, because I'm just shit at games, so I decided to reach out to another big fan of the game and ask a few questions about the map design. You're having a good day, you are?
Alright, yes.
While I was playing, I had a lot of issues with the map. I feel like it was just an update on where you are and not where you have to go. Now, you might disagree with me, but how do you feel about Rule of Rose's map?
I liked the map. One thing I liked, they made enough logical sense that I could draw them and make my own, like an architecture map.
While playing last night, I used your map instead of the in-game one.
Yeah, well, there you go. It was something I like to do. It was a useful guide because I could put where everything was, all the items, all the enemies.
Did the game ever make you feel lost in a way that added to the atmosphere?
So somewhat, the rooms of the orphanage are transposed in the airship in various manners. Both of the places, they do feel cramped and locked over themselves. If the airship gives more space to walk around, it's still as isolated and locked from the outside. So yeah, I'd say from my perspective, yes, it works with it gives the right atmosphere of being locked inside.
I felt like, particularly in the clover rooms that you need the keys for, the rooms and the area was very repetitive, and I felt like that really helpfully played into the whole memory aspect of the game. Would you agree that the repetitiveness of rooms and hallways can add to that delusion?
I think when we are passionate about something, we tend to overanalyze or overinterpret things because the game was rough around the edges, but also the places they evolve over time. They get messier, they get dirtier, ropes appear. There is an evolution of the space or a devolution. That was new to me in the games at the time. I know since then more horror games have used that.
Do you think that that evolution of the map throughout the game is a cross reference to Jennifer's emotions enhancing the longer she stays in the airship?
No, I think it's more about how the orphanage evolved after the adults left. The children were left on their own, and it quickly became anarchy, and it evolved from there.
That makes more sense, to be fair. What I interpreted was that the gameplay feeds into the vulnerability of Jennifer, and I feel like I'm picking up a lot of small things and cross-referencing it back to how Jennifer feels. And I think, in my opinion, it's a better way to enter the game with that mindset because it can kind of excuse the flaws that the game has.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's an easy excuse for what was a bit of outdated gameplay.
especially like if you've a peanut brain like me and you interpret it that way, it's very helpful and you don't get as frustrated with the poor game mechanics. So it's really helped me out. And
Exactly. Pretend it was intended, and that works better.
I'm not sure if this is a terrible take or not, but I feel like the game, you could cut its value in half if Brown wasn't involved. I just wanted to ask, what role do you think that Brown plays beyond just being a companion?
Braun he's the main character. I know through game development that Braun at first wasn't there, and then evolved from being innovative gameplay mechanics. But in the story, Braun is one of the lead characters and is crucial to the story. I've never been a dog person, so part of the relationship is lost on me. Consider the whole story if Braun was a boy. It works the same. The relationships dynamics you see in game, Braun is as much of another orphan as every other kid. Only Jennifer is perhaps a bit less twisted towards Braun than the other aristocrats are between themselves. And Braun is probably the purest soul in the game, but it is a dual relationship between Braun and Jennifer. He's part of the story.
He definitely is part of the story, and a big part at that. I wanted to ask, do you think the game uses Brown to reinforce Jennifer's emotional state? And I guess in a way, while I was playing, what I picked up on was all the distress that Jennifer is going through. I feel like Brown really helps maintain her innocence, just being a young girl. I just wanted to see your standpoint on that.
I'd say in some way, Braun and his character as a dog reflects the one of Jennifer's. They are a bit of the same, or at least the player is led to believe they are a bit similar. Kind, loyal, straightforward. There are hints that Jennifer might not have been a very good kid, but Braun is, and he is the helper character, always at her side. For me, it's a reflection of the previous pair, I'd say, between Wendy and Jennifer, them being loyal to each other, and then Jennifer and Braun being loyal to each other. Reinforcing, I'd say it's more a reflection of what has been before and how they relate to each other.
You could almost interpret it like even if Brown was just Jennifer's memory, because I feel like the characters in the game don't pay too much attention to Brown. It could almost be a characteristic of her memory, and maybe just part of her personality. I'm not too sure. I could be reading into it too much.
Yeah, that's one of the risks with this kind of game is that it's easy to read too much into it. But it's true. I also wonder in the game, except at the end or Wendy's letters, no one acknowledges that Brown is there next to Jennifer. So, to some extent, the Brown we see isn't real. It's just a memory.
Another thing I wanted to ask, again, this could relate back to me having a peanut-sized brain and struggling more than most people. Do you think the game trusts the player too much? Like, for example, kind of expecting you to figure things out on your own, or is that just part of the mystery?
I think, like other aspects, is part of it was intended, and part of it is just the game being a bit rough around the edges. Part of it was intended, but gameplay-wise, the difficulty curve is not smooth. First, you don't understand what you're supposed to do. Then the fight system, you don't really get what you're meant to do. Then you get it. Then you get to the first boss, and that's where you get your first game overs. I think everyone gets wrecked there.
A very humbling experience, I must add.
Yeah. I remember having to restart the game at that point because I didn't have enough health item, and my first gameplay I didn't finish. And the story, it's probably a bit more intended to keep things a bit unclear. I'd say I'm sure there is a missing chapter. There was a CGI cutscene that was not put in the game that hints that the story wasn't exactly what it was meant to be, so they had last minute changes, and there are holes because of that. So because we like the game anyway, we're quick to find explanations or meanings where there is none and they really didn't have an answer.
One last question. I just wanted to add this in. I seen it today. This blooper team reveal. What do you think about this? Do you think it has any relation to Rule of Rose, just while it's on topic?
I don't think so. I would love to be wrong, but I don't think it's Rule of Rose.
Do you think there's a big enough audience to initiate a remake?
I don't think so. I would love it, but I would not bet on it.
I think might be the safe option. It's the hope that kills you, really. Look, I appreciate you doing this interview. I really do.
I hope you make a good video.
Let's hope so. I really hope so.
Okay, so there it is. I'm about to give my unscripted final thoughts on Rule of Rose. I don't even know where to begin with this game. This game opened up my eyes to artwork inside of video games. Before playing Rule of Rose, I kind of just brushed games off. Oh, cool, I can kill people. Cool, I can climb buildings. Never really appreciated games for its artwork. Never appreciated games for the deeper things people don't really pick up on. Or at least I don't. For example, the emotional connection I felt with Jennifer was something I've never felt before. The only time I've ever felt an emotional connection to a character like that is the Telltale's Walking Dead games, and that's because you're literally playing a movie and it's difficult to not get invested in the story and the characters because you're kind of forced to. Some games just have cool gameplay and cool graphics and you can just play it willy-nilly without even thinking about it. And yes, you can enjoy that, but this is something completely different. Being quite frank, without the story and the emotion and the underlying meanings of this game, the game isn't really special. Like we went over before, there's a lot of flaws with the gameplay and especially the combat. So 85-90% of my appreciation for this game is the deeper meanings. Now in this video I only showed gameplay for the first 3-4 hours. I didn't want to spoil any of the bigger parts. Now keep in mind I only played about 8 hours, didn't actually complete the game, but I watched pretty much the rest of it in playthroughs. I think the emotional connection with the characters are unbreakable, especially Jennifer and Brown. Brown is, like I said, the best boy in PlayStation 2 history. There's literally only one way to describe this game, and it is beautiful. Modern horror games heavily rely on jump scares and creepy figures to get your heart rate going. But Rule of Rose just has this uneasy setting and uneasy yet beautiful music and detail and artwork and characters. It's just something special that I've never experienced before. Now, I'm extremely honest when it comes to things, especially games. Again, I do think the combat is very, very poor in this game, and there are a few plot holes that need answering. I think this game is living proof that, especially in the earlier days, the early 2000s when this game released, people had very selective hearing and understanding. It's fun in games to just jump to a conclusion about something without actually trying it for yourself. Trying this game for myself and listening to some of the fans completely eradicated most of the controversy surrounding the game. I think it's completely misunderstood and has a heavily poor reputation for no good reason. Again, this is off script and I can't really put into words how this game made me feel, but it is very eye-opening to the future videos I'm going to make on different games. The attention to detail is much greater. Emotional connection to the game is way better. And another thing I think of is, if I was creating a game, first of all, it'd be shit. Second of all, I don't know how people think of stuff. Now, using your brain and thinking in general isn't too difficult. I'm doing it right now. But the in-depth storytelling in this game is... Probably, give me fucking 10 years, I couldn't even think of a mission as deep as this game. The writers are geniuses. They know how to make their players feel. They know how to twist emotions from fear to traumatic to just upsetting. The writers of this game really have you by the balls. And it's not a gentle squeeze. They're right fucking up there. Again, I'm going to say for the 1000th time, this is off script. I'm just spitballing just shit at this point. But you get what I'm trying to say. The game is beautiful. Gameplay is meh. Story, characters, the emotions, the fear. Unbelievable. Like Lush said, I don't think there is a big enough audience to initiate a remake for this game, which is very unfortunate. And as much as fans of Rule of Rose would love a remake, I think it's just something you can't touch. There have been some games that have gotten remakes and they have made them better, but I think that this is a PlayStation 2 game. I think the way the PlayStation 2 worked, especially its graphics, really helps enhance this game's emotions. If you had it in 4K 60 frames per second on a flat screen TV, I just feel like it wouldn't feel the same. I hope people understand what I'm saying. I hope the die-hard Rule of Rose fans don't hate me for this video. I literally started playing this game a month and a half ago, and I've only got about 8 hours in it. I've scrolled for maybe 1 to 2 hours on the Reddit. I've tried to pick up as much information as possible. Please forgive me if you don't think this is a good analysis, but this is it's more a diary entry from me rather than trying to get the approval of fans of the game. As much as I appreciate you all, I think differently, and I definitely go in depth on things that don't need to be deep rooted. For example, the gameplay and me trying to translate that to how Jennifer feels, as if the gameplay is shit because Jennifer is a shit fighter. You know, only I could do that. Maybe some other people do it, but that's all up in here. There's not much going on, but there's something up there, I think. At least I'm sure there is. So forgive me. But again, I'd love to thank everyone who's helped me in this video. The people who've done the interviews, I greatly appreciate you. And everyone on the Reddit and the Discord just posting little things and feeding me more knowledge. Not knowing I'm there, just I'm kind of sitting in the background, just taking it all in. I really thank all of you. And thanks for broadening my eyes on this amazing game that you all adore. I will leave links in the description to the Reddits, the Discords, everything you need if you are interested in this game. So, to Rule of Rose, thank you very much for this experience, and I'll see everyone in the next video. Goodbye.